hope I didn't spoil the perfect record of pins and ribbons solving all the world's problems. I mean, you can't name a problem from guns to AIDS to bullying to cancer that still exists after people wore a ribbon for it. Except all of them. You posers. 3 years ago, everybody was all into Ukrainian flags. What happened to that? Another cause tossed into the junk drawer with yesterday's choke collar? Get out of here with your virtue-signaling body ornaments. They're just crucifixes for liberals.
This year's Golden Globes have wrapped up, and once again, public policy themes found their way onto the stage. Several attendees wore pins referencing ongoing debates over federal immigration enforcement across the country. However, Bill Maher took a different approach. The comedian chose not to participate, and instead shared his perspective. He questioned the trend and offered commentary on those who supported it, delivering his remarks in a measured tone. If you value balanced analysis, subscribe and let's take a closer look.
So we're now right in the middle of awards season here in Hollywood. How about everybody drop the politics for a couple of hours and just enjoy these happy, dopey celebrations of show business? You know, I was up for a Golden Globe this month and... Oh, thank you. I'll put it with the 33 Emmys I lost. That's a real number. And walking in, some reporter asked me why I wasn't wearing a lapel pin for the first Minneapolis shooting a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, it was a terrible thing that happened, and it shouldn't have happened, and if they didn't act like such thugs, it wouldn't have had to happen, but I don't need to wear a pin about it. Now, please understand, I had no idea this question was coming, and so tonight, I'd like to say that if I had the chance to think about it, my answer would be exactly the same.
Right out of the gate, Maher opens with a direct critique of what he describes as modern woke culture, making his position clear from the start. He questions the growing overlap between entertainment events and political messaging, arguing that award shows are increasingly becoming platforms for broader social statements. If there's one trait many viewers associate with Maher, it's his willingness to speak independently. He often emphasizes that he doesn't follow trends simply because they're popular. That approach explains why he chose not to wear the lapel pin. In his view, symbolic gestures can feel performative rather than substantive. He suggests that meaningful engagement comes from open dialogue and willingness to address difficult realities, not from visual statements alone. Maher also shares a nuanced perspective on the incident itself, noting that the circumstances appeared more complex than early reactions suggested. He argues that different choices might have led to a different outcome. At the same time, he does not fully defend the actions of ICE agents, acknowledging that the situation may have benefited from greater restraint and judgment. His broader message is that complicated issues rarely have simple answers. Responsibility is often shared, and slogans alone cannot resolve deeply layered problems.
Same. ICE, thugs, pins, stupid. I'm with me on this one. So no need to keep sending supporting texts. Yeah, you know how I hear about whatever my latest scandal is? I open my phone and there's a dozen texts. I support you. Great, I assumed you did. About what? What are we talking about? I'm sorry, I don't get my gossip from the internet like most people. I get it old school from the girls at the nail salon.
It's unlikely anyone expected that a brief red carpet interview at the Golden Globes would spark widespread debate, yet a short exchange quickly gained traction online and reached audiences far beyond the event itself. What began as a routine media moment evolved into a broader cultural conversation. Rather than facing universal criticism, Maher received noticeable support from fellow comedians, writers, and industry figures who shared similar concerns but do not always express them publicly. Some viewers described his remarks as a candid departure from what they see as highly managed, carefully framed messaging common at major ceremonies. At the same time, critics of the event argued that certain public displays during the ceremony felt more symbolic than substantive. They questioned whether visible gestures were translating into meaningful dialogue or policy engagement. Maher's decision not to participate in those gestures intensified the contrast. The discussion shifted from a single interview to a larger debate about authenticity, public signaling, and the role of entertainers in political conversations. For many observers, the moment highlighted ongoing tensions between symbolism and substance within Hollywood's public discourse.
Then I'll be out to dinner, and the waiter will come over and say, "Big fan, Bill, stay strong." About what? And then when I see what it is, I'm like, holy this is what you people are so worked up about? According to the internet, what I did with my comments at the Globes was laugh, scoff, mock, take a dig at, and refuse to join Golden Globes activism. Golden Globes activism? Oh, you mean the activism of fixing a pin to my suit?
Maher's central argument resonates with many viewers who feel fatigued by symbolic displays that appear disconnected from tangible outcomes. Each year, major events feature visible statements, pins, hashtags, brief speeches that generate attention online but often leave open questions about long-term impact. For critics of this pattern, the concern is not about raising awareness, but whether awareness alone leads to measurable change. Social media moments can circulate widely, yet the communities most affected by policy debates may see little direct benefit from those brief public gestures. From this perspective, meaningful engagement would require sustained involvement beyond televised appearances. That could include supporting initiatives, contributing resources, participating in structured dialogue, or backing policy discussions through formal channels. Symbolism can start a conversation, but it does not replace follow-through. Maher's broader point centers on authenticity. Influence, he suggests, is built through consistent effort and accountability, rather than short, highly visible moments. When the spotlight fades, what remains is the substance behind the message, and that, more than optics, shapes lasting credibility.
If I didn't spoil the perfect record of pins and ribbons solving all the world's problems. I mean, you can't name a problem from guns to bullying to cancer that still exists after people wore a ribbon for it. Except all of them. You posers.
Maher's argument reflects a broader frustration shared by some viewers. Taking a step back, many ask what measurable outcomes have resulted from highly visible red carpet gestures. Public statements may attract attention, but policy frameworks often remain unchanged, and communities may not immediately experience tangible differences. Symbolic moments can raise awareness, yet awareness alone does not automatically translate to structural reform. For critics of these displays, the concern centers on sustainability. Meaningful change typically requires time, organized effort, financial support, and long-term engagement with institutions. That kind of involvement is complex and often lacks the immediate recognition that comes with televised appearances or viral clips. It's easier to signal support than to commit to prolonged action. Maher's broader point suggests that credibility is earned through consistent follow-through rather than brief, high-visibility moments. Until sustained work replaces short-term symbolism, debates about authenticity and effectiveness are likely to continue.
3 years ago, everybody was all into Ukrainian flags. What happened to that? Another cause tossed into the junk drawer with yesterday's choke collar? Get out of here with your virtue-signaling body ornaments. They're just crucifixes for liberals. Because every time I see one, I think, Jesus Christ.
Maher also points to the pins many celebrities wore at award shows several years ago in support of Ukraine. At the time, blue and yellow ribbons were highly visible, speeches referenced solidarity, and public statements were widespread. Over time, however, those visual symbols became less common as media attention shifted to other global developments. His observation is not about diminishing the seriousness of the conflict, but about how public focus evolves. Ukraine did not become less significant, rather coverage cycles changed, and new issues began to dominate headlines. Maher's broader argument is that high-profile activism in entertainment spaces can sometimes mirror those shifting cycles of attention. Critics of symbolic gestures argue that when public engagement fades, visible displays of support often fade as well. Sustained advocacy typically requires long-term commitment beyond moments of peak visibility. Maher's commentary raises a larger question about consistency. If solidarity is rooted in principle, it should extend beyond periods of intense media coverage.
The discussion ultimately centers on whether public figures maintain engagement once the spotlight moves elsewhere, or whether attention naturally follows emerging conversations.
Congratulations for raising awareness. The awareness you really care about, which is how wonderful you are. Ricky Gervais once told the award show crowd, "Don't use it as a platform to make a political speech. You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world." And of course, this is where celebrities say, "How dare you? We're citizens with just as much right to speak out." Agreed, you absolutely do. I'm just saying, don't.
Maher's broader argument centers on distance. He suggests that many high-profile entertainers operate in environments far removed from the day-to-day pressures faced by average Americans, which can shape how their public commentary is received. Surrounded by wealth, security, and professional insulation, their lived experiences often differ significantly from those dealing with rising costs, public safety concerns, or employment uncertainty. From this perspective, public statements on complex social and political issues may come across as abstract rather than grounded in direct experience. Information is frequently filtered through media teams, advisors, and online spaces that reinforce prevailing narratives. When engagement is limited to circles of agreement, it can create an echo effect rather than broad-based dialogue. Maher argues that this kind of environment can unintentionally narrow perspective. Nuance may be lost, and simplified messaging can replace deeper analysis. His point is not that entertainers should remain silent, but credibility depends on awareness of context. When commentary appears disconnected from everyday realities, audiences may interpret it as performance rather than insight.
It's having the opposite effect of what you want. Every big name in show business came out for Kamala Harris, from Oprah to Clooney to Beyonce, and she lost every swing state. A survey of Ohio voters found Taylor Swift's endorsement actually had a negative impact, with 24% saying it made them less enthusiastic about her as a candidate. Come on. Read the room, Democrats.
Here's where the discussion becomes more layered. Some post-election commentary has suggested that celebrity endorsements of Kamala Harris may not have produced the intended effect. Rather than persuading undecided voters, highly visible support from well-known entertainers may have reinforced existing skepticism among certain segments of the electorate. For many voters, admiration for performers does not automatically translate into confidence in their political judgment. Audiences may enjoy celebrities in film, television, or music, yet still prefer policy debates to be led by elected officials and subject matter experts. Issues such as the economy, public safety, and social policy often carry weight that extends beyond cultural influence. In some cases, celebrity involvement can be interpreted as a signal of establishment alignment rather than grassroots connection. Critics argue that this perception risks widening the gap between campaigns and voters who already distrust major institutions. The broader takeaway is that visibility and popularity are not the same as policy credibility. While endorsements can amplify messaging, sustained public trust typically depends on clear proposals, consistent communication, and demonstrated leadership rather than star power alone.
Celebrities aren't helping, and why would they? In a country where the big issue now is affordability, outside of, Springsteen and a few others, celebrities don't strike people as relatable or in touch. And what their activism mostly activates is eye rolls. Because stars, they're not just like us. They're just not. They fly private. They have 5 houses all over the world. They give their kids ridiculous names. They make candles that smell like their
Many critics argue that a key source of tension lies in lifestyle differences. Public figures often live in circumstances far removed from the financial and social pressures experienced by much of the population. Concerns such as housing costs, job stability, neighborhood safety, or stretching a paycheck can feel distant from the realities of those operating within highly insulated professional environments. Because of that gap, some audiences question whether celebrities can accurately represent everyday experiences when speaking on policy matters. Empathy can be strengthened by lived experience, and without direct exposure to certain pressures, commentary may appear abstract or disconnected. That does not imply negative intent, but it can shape how messages are received. When entertainers position themselves as voices for broad segments of the public, skepticism can follow if people believe consequences of proposed ideas will not personally affect those delivering them. Representation, in this view, depends less on visibility and more on shared understanding. Without that connection, advocacy risks being perceived as distant rather than grounded in everyday realities.
Please, it's okay, you're stars. We like you for who you are. Insulated divas whose talent allows you to pig out on the finer things in life, because we all need something to aspire to. But being talented, which you are, isn't the same as knowing things or having the credibility to advise people on their politics. You rail against privilege, but you avail yourself of the greatest privilege of all, to remain clueless.
In the end, Maher's argument aims to simplify a complicated debate. He contends that highly visible gestures may generate attention, but attention alone does not resolve policy challenges. Public displays, whether pins, short statements, or red carpet moments, often fade as media cycles move on, while underlying issues remain. He also suggests that when commentary comes from individuals whose daily lives differ significantly from those of most voters, audiences may question its practical relevance. For some viewers, authenticity carries more weight than spectacle. That perception helps explain why his decision not to participate in symbolic gestures drew support from those who preferred direct discussion over pageantry. Maher's broader message centers on follow-through. If lasting change is the goal, it requires sustained effort, measurable action, and accountability beyond televised moments. Visibility can spark conversation, but progress typically depends on consistent engagement. That wraps up today's breakdown. If you found this analysis valuable, consider subscribing for more thoughtful discussions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.